Yo, what's up guys? Jono here. Today I want to show you my Cyan Burning Arrow build that I did. I'm currently level 90. I've cleared a good portion of the end game, tier 16 maps, and I've cleared exiles at tier 4. So I think it's a good time to show you the build. The build focuses around the new buffs to Burning Arrow and also to Xov's Nature. Xov's Nature now has a level 20 Ignite Profilation support into it, so we basically get a 7 link for our Burning Arrow. And the Burning Arrow has a debuff on the enemy every time we ignite it, stacking up to 5 times, which ends up giving us around 108% more damage when we have the 5 stacks up. What that means, when we are mapping, we just ignite one enemy and the ignite will spread to nearby monsters, clearing whole packs and even clearing mobs off screen most of the time. When we're doing single target, like the new Metamorphs that you find in basically every map, we just hit the enemy a bunch of times and the ignite will stack up pretty high pretty quickly and things die rather fast. And if you really need the damage, we just use our Wild Burning Arrow. It has 3 stacks and it gives us around 100% more damage with our ignite. So we can really nuke something down if you want to. Unfortunately, I couldn't test it on end content that I'm familiar with, like Uber Elder and stuff. But I've tested it on T4 Guardians or Exiles, however you want to call them. And I think the damage held up pretty nicely. When it comes to the gear, there's a few things that are necessary, especially the Xov's Nature and the Comb's Heart. I've talked about the bow already, but the Comb's Heart gives us our main defense with the 500 life. We are close to 6k and once we level up we get even more life. We are sacrificing the 6 sockets, but we really need the life to survive and it makes the build really tanky. You don't die that fast. The Signal Fire, this one is pretty cheap, but it gives us a lot of damage and you can get this relatively early on, and you should really get this belt here because it gives you 35% fast ignite ticks. So this is really a huge upgrade for a low investment. But Comb's Heart and the bow are really expensive, so this is by no means a league starter. I also got the Taming. This one is around 1.5 2x. It isn't necessary, but it's really a lot of damage and it's 30 all res, so it really helps you get your resistance fixed. You should get a curses enemy with whatever level flammability on rings. These ones are relatively cheap. I bought this for 40 chaos. Other than that, you just need a Burning Arrow helmet with 25% increased debuff effect. For the gloves and the boots, it's just resistances and knife and damage wherever you can get it, fire damage, physical damage and attack speed. Resistances on rings, amulets and so on. When it comes to flasks, Quicksilver Flask is a no-brainer. Diamond Flask, this one has freeze immunity, you should really get a freeze immunity flask. Witchfire Brew, when you use Witchfire Brew, you need to get the second curse from the skill tree. Cinder Swallow and a life flask with instant recovery and also remove bleeding. When you run a cursed map, like Temporal Chains, you can use a different flask to remove the curses as well. When it comes to the Ascendancy, we go to the Deadeye first, grab the Deadeye, go to the Pathfinder starting zone. When I was leveling, I had saved up like 10 or 15 points when I got it, and then we start gearing here. And for the Uberlap, we get the Chieftain Ascendancy. For the skill tree, we start out in the middle as a Cyan does, and then we just grab a bunch of life rack, lot of life. Some reduced mana cost of skills is pretty mandatory for the build. You need a certain threshold, and once you hit it, you are good to go. Some fire damage, life, some elemental damage. These reduced mana nodes are very important. More damage, more damage. You get the curses here, elemental overload, some more life, and I've also passed here to get this jewel socket to get the tempered mind. so I can fix my accuracy problem. Otherwise I would have to get like maybe 1,000 accuracy on gear, and that's just a little too much. More fire damage, and then we go over to the Deadeye tree. We also get mana reserved here. This is very important, so we can have Malevolence, more life, true sockets, more damage, and this one here is really important. We got a mana leech from this and some life leech. Because our impact damage is so low, because we're scaling the ignite, we do not really have a huge damage pool to leech from. So we need to scale a little higher so we can actually get our leech cap going. We also pick up lethality and the crit chance nodes on the side, because we need a crit chance to proc our elemental overload, and these are just 3 points for nearly 100% more crit chance, so we end up having around 20% crit chance with our diamond flask up. I also anointed entropy just because it was relatively cheap, gives us a good damage increase. If I had the currency, I would go for growth and decay, or I would go for charisma, but these are kinda expensive and I'm not sure if I'm gonna swap out the amulet sooner or later, so I just took the cheap version of it basically. When it comes to jewels, get max life on every jewel if you can, get fire damage, get damage over time. You can also get some reduced mana cost of skills if you want, fire damage over time. Watcher's Eyes if you want, if you have the currency. I got myself a increased fire damage while affected by anger, Watcher's Eye. There's also one for Malevolence, but it was a little more expensive, and if you want both mods at the same time, it's, the price ramps up rather quickly. For the gem setups, Burning Arrow, Deadly Ailments, Elemental Damage with Attack Supports, Combustion, GMP and Burning Arrow. The GMP, you can swap it out for boss fights or metamorphs with Swift Affliction. I usually have it on my second bar and just swap before boss fights and after boss fights. Our auras, Malevolence, Herald of Ash, Anger and Enlighten. Also cast when damage taken, Steel Skin and Summon Stone Golem. I have a Val Haste. I'm not using the Haste aura, I'm just using the Val Haste for the boss fights basically, or for some movement speed. I'm using Spell Totem support, Wave of Conviction, and I'm also using increased area of effect, which isn't necessary, but it helps for the totem to survive, because you can place the totem further away from the boss or whatever you want to hit, and the waves is gonna shoot out further, so the totem doesn't die that easily. Wave of Conviction just debuffs the enemy's elemental resistances, so we do more damage basically. I'm also using Dash. You can swap it out for Blink Arrow or Flame Dash if you want, or whatever you feel like. I just use Dash because I never used it before and I wanted to give it a try. It's fine, I think, once you have it leveled up, and I can get some quality on it, and I should get the cooldown down to around 1 second probably. And yeah, it's okay. It's not the best skill, but I can dash around as much as I want. For our DPS, while Burning Arrow 800k and Burning Arrow close to 500,000. Shaper DPS, that's of course without the stacking from Burning Arrow. So you can take this number by basically 280%. So that ends up being close to 1.5 million Shaper DPS just from the Ignite when we have all the stacks. And if you play it right and use your Wild Burning Arrow after you have 5 stacks, you can get probably close to 2 million basically. That's it for the build guide. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. If you're looking for the passive building, it's in the description as well. And yeah, I hope I see you next time.